everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. In the last video about our Dodge Caravan, we found out we've got a big transmission problem, but maybe there's something we can do about it rather than actually taking the transmission out of the van. So what happened was I posted on social media because I know a lot of guys that are mechanics and fooling around. They run these old Caravans and demo derbies. They do all kinds of stuff with them. So I posted that, hey man, I'm looking for a Core 62 TE transmission because I need something to build because I think the transmission in my van is pooched. And as far as I'm concerned, it's pooched. But because of the post I made, I had a couple of guys reach out to me, mechanics, you know. Craig, one of my racing buddies, told me, hey man, this is a pretty common problem on them. The filter gets plugged up and then they starve for fluid and they do all kinds of strange stuff. Among them, the torque converter sounding like it's full of marbles, which is what this thing is doing. And quite frankly, when I was driving it more than once, or not more than once, but when it started acting up, I said, hey man, it seems like this thing is starving for, like it's having a hard time picking up the oil. That's why I pulled the pan down, because I've seen strange things in my time working on transmissions. I've seen our rags left inside a transmission at overhaul and it gets sucked into the pickup and it'll let it sort of run, but it shortens its life drastically. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. The advice was go ahead, service it, and you may be surprised what happens. Now, for me, I've been messing with transmissions my whole life, although I've never messed with one of these. And even if the filter is plugged, it's got to be plugged with stuff that was kind of generated from within, you know, clutch material or metal. I don't see a bunch of metal in the pan, so I'm guessing it's clutch material. But still, I made the decision that, yes, it's worth investing, I think, about $80 in, maybe $100 in fluid and a filter kit. And we'll try it. Either it's a waste of $100 or it's $100 that saved me thousands. One or the other. We've got basically three choices of what's going to happen here. Choice number one, it fixes it and we never have another problem. Choice number two, it at least gets it going as a stopgap until we can find a transmission and get it built. Or number three, it's an abject failure and it just keeps doing what it's been doing. We're going to find out. So here we've got a Baldwin service kit, which is a filter and a gasket, and a jug of Mobil ATF Plus 4. So we're going to get this pan cleaned up and cleaned out, and we're going to get the gasket surface of the transmission cleaned up. We'll get this thing put together and see what happens. Now, if this works, I'm still not sure I can test this thing because I'm going to put a hitch on this and I'm going to be pulling trailers with it and I'm going to be hauling loads with it. But we'll feel it out over time. And if it does work, I'm going to service it again after a little while. I'll run it for a little bit and make sure it seems like it's okay. And then at that point, what I'll do, I'm going to drop the pan again. And this time we're going to pull the valve body cover off and we're going to put a Transco shift kit in it. We will also, service it again. And I'm going to put an inline filter, which is what I did on every automatic transmission I've ever had that I'm going to work. I've always done that. I've added an external filter. You just find the outline, the cooler line that's out from the transmission, and you just put a remote filter head and screw an oil filter on it. And all my plow trucks and any of these little front wheel drive cars I've ever had with automatic transmissions, I always did that. I learned that trick back early years ago with K-cars. K-cars weren't too bad, but when they started using those little 413 3-speed transmissions in turbo minivans and V6 minivans, they had a problem because the side bearings on the differential carrier weren't really up to the task. They're actually, if you can imagine the size of it, if you've ever worked on a K-car, the inner rear wheel bearings, like they're about this big, are the same bearings as they put on the side bearings of the differential carrier. They're literally the exact same bearings. and they couldn't take it. They corrected that problem on Neons on the thrust side, the side that took all the abuse. They put a larger bearing. But anyway, back to the K car. They would tear them bearings up, and the little crappy filter in the oil pan wasn't enough to catch the fine metal particles, and they would go through everything, and they would get into the governor, and the thing would hang up in gear. It would stick. It was terrible. But on my first Caravan, the turbo one that I had, I fixed it. I had to flush it probably 2 or 3 times before it stopped sticking the governor. And to be sure it never happened again, I finally, when it was all sorted out, I put in a new, right from the dealer, I bought a new governor for it, and I put an inline filter on it. And then all my buddies at work they all had old K cars and LeBarons and minivans and stuff. And those things, all transmission problems, eh? They all started doing the same thing because from the scrap buses, the old buses with the 2-speed had a nice filter head in the back that took an HP1 filter. So the guys would grab those off the scrap buses, and they all had them, and nobody ever had any more transmission problems because they had decent filtration. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Let's get under there and get this thing put back together. So far, so good. We got the pan cleaned up. This one is the one that comes with a gasket. I'm going to try the gasket. I hate the silicone. Oh, it's a nightmare. And what's an important part with these filters is that this is the seal. So the seal is the interface between the transmission case and the filter. You got to get this perfect, or else this hammers into the case, and then the filter goes up into there. And if you get this wrong, it can suck air around this joint, and that'll certainly cause you problems. So we're going to go ahead, pull the old filter down, and maybe we'll cut it open and see what we see inside it, eh? So here we go. I mean, you can see inside this thing. It's not all burnt to hell or anything. Like, there's no great big chunks of stuff. I've seen the insides of a lot of burned up transmissions in my day, and this thing doesn't look anything like that at all. So I've got that. You can see there at the end of my finger, I've got the new oil pickup seal installed. So we'll get the new filter installed and go from there. So we'll just put a little bit of oil around here, get that worked up into the seal. Then it's held on with 2 screws there and there. And we can go ahead, put the pan up, fill her up, and see what happens. The plug filter thing may hold a little water. I'll tell you, when I pulled the old filter down, I was holding it like this, and no fluid was really running out of the pickup, or the suction part of it. But when I turned it over, a whole bunch of fluid came out. And the other thing I noticed was, so the filter media in it will be saturated with oil, and that weighs something. But that filter weighs a hell of a lot more. It's there draining because we're going to cut it open. I want to get as much oil out of it as I can. It weighs a hell of a lot more than this one, for what it's worth. We've emptied our drain bucket here, and this is what came out of the transmission. And there's definitely some junk in it, but, I can honestly say I've seen worse that was still driving around. So, well, we'll still keep our fingers crossed. I'm going to throw this back under there. Now, let me get rid of this mess here. So these things, once they've been opened, will take 5 or 6 quarts or liters of oil. This one will probably take, I'm guessing, closer to 6 because it sat here for a couple of days with the oil pan off. So the torque converter slowly will drip down. Oh, look at it. They're doing pit. You don't see that every day. They're doing pit crew practice with a mini stock. I think it's a Neon too. All right, this is an ARCA team practicing pit stops on a Neon mini stock. That's cool. That's grassroots racing. Anyway, this is the dipstickless stupid transmission. And of course, they put the filler tube right underneath a great big gigantic wiring harness that doesn't move. That's another thing I'm going to be fixing on this. We're going to be putting a taller dipstick tube on, and maybe I could find a dipstick. I can make it just the right length so I can just find a dipstick from an old torque flight or something that I can use in there. How they come up with this stuff, I'll never know. Anyway, so we're just going to go ahead and dump 5 quarts of this into this thing. We'll make sure it doesn't leak, and then we're going to start it up. Okay, here we go. I'm going to crank it up, and we'll see if that horrible noise goes away. It'll make a little bit of noise at first, for sure, because it's empty, right? It's got to wait for the pump to pick up the oil and pump it through. So we'll find out. Here goes nothing. Okay, so it's still kind of noisy. What I'm going to do is check the fluid here. See if we got to add a little bit. The thing is stone cold, so as a general rule of thumb, we use our engine oil dipstick, and it should be about there when it's cold. Let's see what we got. Nothing. Better put some more in. I've got the fluid up now. It did take 6 and a bit quarts. I've set it kind of to the low side of the range because the front of it is up in the air. So when we put it down, it's going to increase. But you can see now it's quiet as a mouse. Goes into gear good. We're going to get it out, give it a road test, and see how she is. Alrighty, let's say we cut this filter open and see what we can find out. I don't think the plastic it's made out of is all that thick. We should be able to cut it easily. I can't use like a reciprocating blade or anything because that'll just fill the thing all full of that'll fill it all full of sawdust and crap. So I gotta literally like cut it with a sharp knife or something. Let me see what I got. So we're just chiseling it open because the plastic was a little too thick to cut with a knife. So we'll just chisel it apart. It's not like I'm gonna use it again. Okay, so you can see how this thing works. This media is folded in half. And so the dirty side of it is actually the inside. So it sucks the fluid up into here. It goes through this hole into the inside of this sack of media, and then it pulls it through. So if we get this out of here, we'll see how gross the inside of it is. Man, it's crimped in there good, isn't it? Okay, well, I got an idea. Knife. Man, hanging on, isn't it? Okay, let's see what's in here. Oh yeah. She's pretty plugged up with crud. I mean, these kind of little bits and stuff that's in here, if that was an engine, I don't think you'd want to see stuff like that, but pretty normal for a transmission. Not too worried about that. But yeah, you could see how that's just filled with crud. Now, I still don't think that that's a good sign of what's going on inside there, but it's certainly not, I don't think, any sign of any impending doom. Although, like I said, before. I will be searching for another transmission that I can either just keep in case I need to build it, or build it and keep it. We'll worry about that when we get to it. Okay, so what we're going to do here is see if we can get rid of these transmission codes before we go, because that may be keeping the thing from it may be adjusting how the transmission works to compensate for it. I don't know. So we're just going to clear all the codes. Erase was successful. Now it should come back to the beginning, and there should be, okay, all our monitors have gone red again, but so now we're going to go to the Dodge and see if that coolant code is still there that we had the other day. I'm sorry you can't read this. Sometimes it comes in so clear, and other times it just doesn't. And this is one of those times when it's just a blank screen. Probably in the daytime when there's a lot more natural light. We'll see if that cooling system code is still there. Nothing, you see, it's gone. And it was, so that was a, what do they call that? A generic. Anyway, whatever it was a kind of code that stays there until the vehicle decides the problem has been resolved and it gets rid of it. You cannot clear that code with the scanner. So we're going to go back to Global OBD2 and make sure 100% that everything is gone. Okay, there is nothing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go take it for a road test. And when I come back, we'll plug back in again and see if we've got any new codes. Okay, so I backed it out of the garage and took it for a road test, and was very disappointed to find that it was stuck in limp mode. So in limp mode, it's just like the old 604s. You get second gear and reverse. So I thought, wow, what is this a result of our problem that we had? So I brought it back and I got the old scanner and I checked, there was no codes. So I said, that's weird. There's something causing it to be stuck in limp mode, but there's no code. So anyway, I thought, oh, wait, it's probably still in limp mode from when it had that meltdown and it set the low pressure code. And I was sitting here and we watched, I cleared the codes, but I never cycled the ignition after I cleared the codes. I left the ignition on and just hit the starter. So I came home, I shut the thing off, opened the door and closed it, let it go to sleep. And when I started it back up, everything was normal. I just went for a little road test up the street. The thing is working perfectly. So, and we're going to double check here. Make sure no codes have come back. We'll go up here. We'll check the old Global OBD2. Oh, my monitors are starting to turn green already too. And then I'll go down and check the Dodge OEM Enhanced. It takes that a minute to load. Give me a minute. Give me a minute. Give me a minute. No codes. Okay, so we're set there. All right, so that's good. I'm going to drive it kind of sparingly for a couple of days so I can learn to trust it. But I am going to do what we discussed earlier. So it's going to get a new Dorman oil pan with a drain plug. It's going to get Transco shift kit. Not a shift kit in the terms of like you'd put in a strip car where it shrieks the tires every time it shifts. It's like Transco makes these kits that just kind of correct little factory problems. They're for daily driven cars. I'm going to put that in it. We're going to service it again with another filter and another load of fresh fluid. And I am going to try and find a spot under the hood where I can mount a remote filter, and we'll put a remote filter on it. And that should get this transmission so it'll last a good long time. And in the meantime, I'm still going to keep my eyes peeled. It will just make me happy. Even if I don't rebuild it, it'll just make me happy knowing that I've got a core transmission sitting in the shed. These things give me fits, man. This is why I would just rather buy a car with a stick shift. But They haven't made a minivan with a stick shift since about 1990. So, and they were such pieces of junk. Those things. They were those 10-year vans. I had one. I had an '89. It hit 10 years old, and it was like somebody pushed a self-destruct button, and the whole thing just exploded. Like the parts would literally break. They just didn't have the quality control. Anyway, that's enough of my ramblings. I'm very happy we managed to fix this, or so we think, because I was very, very nervous about it. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. I hope we all learned something here today. I am still shocked after how this transmission was acting, that just changing the fluid in the filter, and it's as good as new. I just blows my mind. Thank you to my racing buddy Craig for suggesting I do that. Anyway, I'm going to go now. Thanks for tuning into our little channel. I think I said that already. It's been a long day. I hope you'll come back and see us again. And until then, I'm Kevin, saying so long from the Claremont Classic Garage.